Hello, viewers. I'm SB,
And I'm Amabel.
and welcome back to Amabel Goes to Forex School, where today Amabel's going to fucking war school, industrial era, shooting people in the face school.
Oh, I know nothing
This
about
battle,
that.
this battle, yeah, you've never. What's the period that a lot of your war games cover? You're into the guns phase of warfare. I know that,
Um,
but you don't do a lot of
when
like
you
modern games, right?
when you say into it makes it sound like I think it's cool and rad, and I don't. Hot take, but so most of my war games traditionally have been set um medieval period,
Mm-hmm.
ancients period, and then some stuff in the 19th century. I haven't really done stuff beyond that. So I've done some American Civil War stuff, some Napoleonics, some Frederick the Great, American Revolution. So that's the 18th century in that case.
So I just
And I've
want to
done a lot of
I just want to point something out here real quick. Sorry, no, go
yeah.
ahead, finish.
No, I mean I'm basically finished.
Okay. If we hit instant resolution, almost none of our troops take any damage, and they all die. Now,
Well,
one thing that I need to point out here is that if you take an instant resolution to a battle, the battle is resolved instantly. And that might sound like a silly thing to, it says that on the button, but I think it's important to think about the fact that a battle of any size can be resolved instantly in this way. But if you fight the battle manually, you're not
it might be
just,
more than one turn.
yeah, you're not just like making the decisions of the battle differently. You're also changing the time scale of the battle. An infinite number of troops can die in a second in instant resolution. And I do think this battle will be a single turn battle, but that's something to really consider in positions where the battle might take longer than a turn, because if a city is within the battlefield, that city is inoperable for the entire length of the battle,
Okay.
right? Which is a system that
Yeah.
I do not think is good, to be clear.
Um. I mean, I can see
I
where
can see the
it.
idea if the city is being besieged and you have like the militia units in the city participating in the battle, how that represents like people not being at work or whatever. But like any battle that has a city within the battlefield borders at all disables that city completely, even if it's happening, miles and miles away. And I just don't. That seems like a really annoying way to do economic harassment.
Yeah, but I do think that. I
Okay, I
mean,
think this is pretty okay as far
coming
as
at
these
it
things go.
from the simulationist point of view that I know you don't care about, but is also why I'm here.
Yeah,
Like that makes sense to me as a way to um, approach that, as a way to model the threat that an army poses.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, one thing historically, because resources are not finite in these games,
hmm,
because once you have a tile, it's always producing that thing. Generally, that I've seen,
yeah,
um, a lot of the real world pressures that I would want to put into a model are just not present,
hmm,
and so this is an abstraction, and it is kind of an annoying abstraction from a gameplay point of view. But I also like annoying people, so like no, I think this makes sense to me, and it does give that. Do I want to do the instant where maybe I might risk losing more dudes than I would otherwise?
Well, I mean, there's
So
there's no risk to the instant.
well, there's no risk this in this case. In
No,
another
no,
case,
there
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 might.
literally isn't though. That's the thing. It's like the manual resolution is risky. Instant resolution, you know exactly what will happen before you press the button.
Okay, right, yeah. So rather than risk, I should use the word like loss. Like you might lose.
Yeah. Well, but this is the core. This is part of the core of the problem is that manual resolution should have some benefits, Like, it's just stupid to manually resolve battles in almost all cases, except that you are making me. Like, this should have been, almost all battles should be instantly resolved, is what I'm saying.
Well, I want to see these systems.
Yeah,
but also
exactly.
there-
But this is what I'm
also
saying.
there
Like,
were-
from a strategic standpoint, the construction of the strategy level systems makes battling a bad idea unless it would be a close battle and you are confident your player skill can tip it the other way, or there's something hinky going on, which is occasionally the case. Occasionally you will have a battle that should be a victory for you, and it comes out an insane loss in the instant resolution thing, and you have to go like, okay, well, that shouldn't be happening. Let me put my hand in and fix it. And almost invariably, that's due to the fact that, I don't know if this is clear to you, the instant resolver does not simulate the battle in any way. It just does some fast math.
Okay, that makes sense.
For example, earlier in this very game, I had a battle where I had slight troop superiority in numbers, and I was a little bit ahead on combat strength per troop, and the auto resolver had me losing everything and none of their units were dying. And what I figured out is that they had ships in the area, and it was counting the dumb math of the instant resolver was counting the strength of the ships in the battle, despite the fact that ships at that stage of the game don't have the ability to fire on land units.
Okay.
So even though in a manual resolution each of those ships would be guaranteed to deal 0 total damage, their strength was pushing the instant resolver over into a place where it was going to kill all my stuff in a way that was actually impossible.
Now,
Anyway,
can I ask you-
so what I've done here is I've found the cavalry unit that is farthest away that can still make it to this point, and we're just gonna do fucking circle around hammer and anvil cavalry charges on their line until I run out of horses, and then we'll figure out what else we want to do. Also, I killed their Markabata with a single attack from one of my crappy draftees to open up the hole here, because they shouldn't be using Markabatas in 1437. That's on them. They opened up that possibility.
So let me ask you a question that you might not have the answer to.
Okay.
In a multiplayer game with more than one human player,
Yeah, I'm familiar with the
And
concept, yeah.
let's say, motherfucker.
Did you want to clarify it again? This is like if you were to use the internet to...
If
I'm sorry, I love you.
I love you too. If you were to attack another player,
Yeah.
do both? So how do you as the attacker choose if it's instant resolve or not? Does
Well,
the
so I was
defender
mousing
choose?
over
Do
that
both
button.
players
I
have
was
a
mousing
choice?
over that button for several minutes. So you could have just like read this information, but it's okay. It is an instant resolve only if both players agree that it's an instant resolve. If either player clicks manual, you fight manual. And the computer AI players always effectively have clicked instant resolve.
Okay.
But when you're playing against another human being, they can make you fight it out manually if they want to. All right, so I'm just trying to figure out like what is the smartest wave of attacks. So one of the things about the way zone of control works in this game is you can move units through spaces that you control without having your movement sapped by zone of control.
Okay.
So when I step up a unit to here, and I'm gonna step up with one of my arquebusiers here. When I step up this unit, that allows this horse unit to now get around behind and perform this flanking charge, which I was otherwise not able to do. Can we reach it with this? Yeah, I want to do it with the furthest away horses that can pull it off, obviously, because we want to keep looping on them.
Yeah. That's
So you
a
can
very
see
common.
you can see the movement straight through 600 spaces that are all adjacent to the enemy, but too bad, my line is in front of theirs. Sorry, nerds.
That's a very common approach to
Yeah.
zone of control from
Okay.
war games. You don't actually get like the original implementation of zone of control that showed up in the Avalon Hill games in the late 50s, early 60s.
Hmm.
As far as hex encounter games, I mean, the concept does come from earlier things as well, but was just a pure locking zone of control where once you're next to someone, you're next to someone until you do combat, and combat was like mandatory.
Yeah.
And then you started to get these kind of developments where there was ways to negate it.
So take
ways
a
to-
take a second here and look at the combat strength breakdowns of what's going on. Technically,
Yeah.
I believe the base combat strength of these units is Teutonic Knights are 38s and Cahokia Raiders are 40s. And then we have, we are both being affected by a number of factors. It only shows in the plus green numbers things that are temporary effects,
Okay.
right? And it includes veterancy in that value. But like you don't see calculated in here the combat strength bonus from my religion, which is just always on,
Okay.
and so that's part of the white number.
Got it.
But yeah, you can see here the charging, the different religion, the number of friendly units I will have adjacent to me from this space, the fact that this is considered a rear attack because I have a unit on the exact other side of them. And so
Yeah.
technically their units based combat strength is higher than mine, but we are going to eliminate them in a single strike here. Are you getting the stuff the stuff that
getting
you
the
want
stuff.
from this? Okay.
I'm getting the stuff I want from this. I'm sorry for.
No, it's okay. I don't mean to. I'm sorry. I don't mean to sound angry about it, which I think I may have come across.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I know what you sound like when you're angry.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's just not it.
That's fair. You have
Not-
you have experienced me getting angry at other at things and world events, and
Yeah.
it is a little different.
But I appreciate you taking me, like, showing me some of this combat stuff, and feel free to instantly resolve going forward, unless there is like new shit. You
Yeah,
want
unless
to
there's
show me.
reasons to. Yeah, that's part
Yeah.
of what I'm doing is I'm making the case for why we will probably do a lot of instant resolution.
Yeah, but also seeing the way these Teutonic Knights just ignore zone of control as they're moving through
Yeah.
it, like that makes sense. That makes sense with Teutonic Knights for the way they charged. I've done a lot of games about Teutonic Knights, so like I get it.
Yeah, the Teutons were like an extremely good fit for the place I was in the game at that moment, with my religion starting to expand over like the entirety of the modern world, and just they really solved every problem I was having simultaneously. It was really nice. So
Yeah, no, they
war support gained, war support lost. Obviously, we fucked their units up in a very serious way. At this point in the game, we're looking at a change of 1 point of war support per dead unit. Earlier in the game, it's 2, but there's a technology that reduces it by half that we both have clearly.
Okay. Now, I have a question about Teutonic Knights. Is it just they benefit from your religion, or do they do anything to spread the religion?
So the specific deal of the Teutonic Knight itself, the horse unit. Where's their unit card? They get a bonus combat strength against enemies that have a different state religion. And then they have the basic heavy cavalry stuff of they do more damage against enemies they weren't adjacent to at the start of the turn. And they can't, fortifications. Horse don't ladder good.
No, they don't.
Classic horse problem. But then the elements of actually like dealing with the spread of the religion are part of like the Kaiserdom, which produces a tremendous amount of faith.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. And then that is the result. The result of that is my faith spilling over into the edges of the other players' territories. And
Yeah, the Teutonic Knights were essentially like a crusading order, except they tended just to crusade against other Christians that they felt were doing it wrong.
Sure.
Mostly to take their stuff. Like
Yeah.
it turns out organized religion sometimes is just a way to take land and resources.
And you can see the amount of healing that we receive per turn. Both of those armies will be in perfect condition again by the beginning of our next turn. We took hardly any damage there. That did get us 1 unit below the first militarist star.
Okay.
And it will certainly not be the last battle that we have with this asshole.
Your empire.
This is going to push our war supports pretty close to equal.
Okay.
And she will keep losing for being at war with us while we are such a pacifist. I mean, listen, in my defense, at least as far as black goes, most of our battles have taken place on my territory. They've mostly been defensive, except for this stuff down here, which used to be theirs. But nobody remembers that anymore. It was a long time ago.
Also, I appreciate pacifism as like a political reputation that you have.
Yeah.
There may or may not comport to reality.
What we get incoming?
You know, everyone knows how
Units
pacifist and neutral the Swiss were in
Yes.
World War II.
Their reputation, well earned. Hi, you guys are in my territory, but more importantly, you're in my way. You are reducing my movement. All right, these spies are no longer concealed. I don't think they'll be killed by our fortress because they're from a player who is allied with us.
Okay.
And we have...
We need to take another look at this.
She has sent me a white peace proposal. So both empires withdraw their commands. We just... Hands off. This was an error. It's interesting. What do you think? The first battle happened and she's like, okay, I fucked up. I'm sorry.
No, I would not, because your friend is still being attacked by them, and I don't feel like that's...
Yeah, and I do want to make it difficult for Black to take more territory. I think the worst thing that could happen to us in a long game sense as a result of this war is Black ending up with more cities. So I do think that we want to continue to put pressure on them. I do think this is a refusal. If I refuse,
You're teasing me, huh?
does it do anything to their war support? No, they don't get any free value against. Oh, but for having offered, they are now also a pacifist. They are seen as a person trying to get out of a war, and so that does impact our war support.
They're in another war. That doesn't make sense.
But that war's not part of this war. This war support is an element of a relationship.
Yeah.
They are seen by our people as not wanting to be at war with us as much. You know, it's...
I mean, that makes sense, because a lot of people tend to, like, well, who cares about the other people that are getting attacked?
Okay, so there's as leader of the current session, you have to put up a civic. Oh, man. Okay, I still don't really see a ton of value, if I'm honest, to be gained from some of this stuff. So if we pushed... Okay, if we were to push the order axis leftward, that would benefit us pretty significantly, I think, because we have greater populations than our opponents do. So if we can push the universal order axis to the left, that would be good. So do we have access to a principle here that touches that axis is the question. And the answer is no. No, we do not, in fact. Well, shit. Does any of this really, like... I am struggling to grasp how to use this mechanic to our benefit. Do you feel like you have a better...
I don't really. One thing I've noticed about 4X games, and maybe this is me talking out of my hat.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on.
You do not need to do prop work. I'm the only one who can see you. Okay.
Is that they have a lot of mechanisms, and I don't know if they need all the mechanisms and systems that they have.
Well, this specifically is a mechanism that was introduced in an expansion, so my suspicion is that it is a direct solution to a problem. Or, you know, an expansion on a system that was thin or something. You know, this is probably not like... None of this stuff comes out of nowhere. Do you know how much effort it is to implement any of this shit? Like, they definitely have reasons for doing the things. Whether those reasons, I'm not going to say those reasons are always good, but
Do you think those reasons are like, if I wanted to, could I like find like a blog or something from like the developers?
potentially they do. Amplitude absolutely does release like, here's what we were thinking, kind of blogs and videos, especially in the run up to the release of a project. But also, I might be able to just get you in touch with, like,
Yeah.
you might be able to interview somebody.
Well, I am interested in like learning more about the process of making these games because I don't know. That's an element I find interesting about games is how they are made, why they are made, the people that make them.
I mean, again, I think like this being unlocked is probably just broadly good for us. We could unlock that one, and then this one being unlocked doesn't actually do anything for us right now. But if we can continue to bully the result leftward here, and like we have so much influence. Now I'm alone on this axis. I didn't particularly want it unlocked, but they unlocked it without me. Do we want to spend enough to push for this? Like, I guess not really until it does something, right? Okay, so anyway, as far as choosing an actual thing here goes, like I said before, it does feel like this is kind of a weird thing in that, like, really what we want is for us to be on one side of an issue and for everybody else to be on the other side of the issue, provided that their side is the wrong one. And so it's weird to try to enforce consensus.
Yeah.
But I suppose if we could pull black off of a policy that they like, then there could be some value. Like, we could screw some stuff up for them. Unfortunately, it seems like on anything where they and we both have a position on the issue, it's the same position except for this. But I don't know that I really want to pull them toward, like, I think they fucked up. This is stupid. It's bad for them to be on plundered wages, so I don't want to try to pull them off of it, certainly. They would definitely be in a better position if they had more industry. Here's a question. Do I have to? Put up for debate. I guess, like, also, what are our, can I see? Yep, I sure did unlock that thing. We can't see the screen that is normally visible for the Congress that shows how much leverage everybody has at a glance. Because that also would be a part of my decision making here, is how likely am I to get voted. I guess I have to do this. I can't not pick one. So yeah, I really don't know.
Just put the top one then, I guess.
I don't really want to affect the science axis. I don't want to pull people to either side on that, really. So let's go pick one where we're all kind of like, I super don't care about this. So this is the information I wanted to see what everybody's leverage levels were. Okay. What are we doing with the horses? I guess the cavalry army just kind of, we plant them in the center of the continent, right? Part of the I guess one question we have to answer is, are we going on offense, and if so, when? I think we should probably.
Yeah.
I think taking a city from black would be a good idea.
Especially as, your war support was neutral before. You had the +1 and the -1, and now you have +1, -2, so.
Like, I'm a little leery of their naval advantage. It's going to be really easy for our troops to get caught crossing the water. But we do have a harbor right here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like, using this harbor as a way to push Harappa is probably a reasonable maneuver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to leave these guys right here for the moment, though, because of the potential attack on Knossos. And my own ship is slowly moving toward the conflict. We'll get there eventually. Okay, so we do want to keep building districts. We have lots of district work to do. This is plus 12 food. Oh, we're suffering. Okay, yeah, we need more places for people to work for sure. It's probably more science then, right?
Yeah.
And we're gonna need to start building kind of like a cluster of science quarters somewhere. Yeah, we want to start by building adjacent to the mountains, of course, with our income bonuses. Okay. Yeah, we really need to improve our rate of research. So right now we're working on movable typeface on the way to the discovery of coal. Let's see what they choose to do. Yep, so 2 stealth units that didn't get out of the way got assassins. They are thinking about making a move because they don't see this army over here, I think. But they've chosen to stay in the water for the moment, backed up by a whole lot of Carracks. So it behooves us, I think, to stay on our side of the line for the moment. You guys are providing important, sneaky backup. I would say probably it's not a good idea to move you. Not this turn, at least. So yeah, Brown actually is losing their spies for staying in my territory. Apparently that Wonder does not care who the units belong to. And you know what? Honestly, I'm fine with it. Like, don't be spying on me.
What does this war do for either of us? You're teasing me, huh?
She's really feeling it.
The answer's no.
So she got up to a level
I do
2.
not feel good about this decision.
Huh.
About you.
She was a level 2 pacifist before I refused that, I guess just by offering it, without having to get out of the war with Drusilla at all. She's a troublemaker for sure.
I'm surprised Drusilla hasn't been a troublemaker.
Yeah, it's common.
Everyone should be poisoned. That's a fun I Claudius joke.
Okay.
For all the I Claudius heads in the audience.
Is that what they're called? I Claudius heads? Is that the fandom name?
Yeah.
All right. Is it worth building any of this little stuff? No. Let's just build more. I mean, I'm inclined to just keep building science quarters everywhere. Science quarters until we have them.
That's to distinguish them from the me Claudius heads.
Okay. So let's take a look at these wonders. There's still a number of wonders available that the other players could theoretically pick up, and so I am, of course, inclined to reach for those ones first. But let's take a look at actually the new ones, the ones the other people can't reach, and see if these are worth grabbing. Big Ben will give us 3 science per adjacent market quarter, 8 science per adjacent administrative center or main plaza, plus 5% science per alliance on the Empire, and plus 10% science in the capital. It is very strong. Actually, that is a lot of extra science output. 10 industry per adjacent research quarter on the Eiffel Tower, and 1 industry per population in all cities. Also really great. The Royal Palace of Papaete, probably something like that. Apologies if I've mispronounced it. Plus 5 science per past osmosis event. Oh, interesting. I think we've had quite a few. I don't know if that is if that number is available anywhere until you finish building this building, obviously. And doubled osmosis event frequencies. That's really interesting, especially to come up this late in the game. The Statue of Liberty gives money and science per number of territories in your sphere of influence, which is a lot. And the Kaiserliche Werft Plus 20 industry on harbors. Lowers naval unit industry cost. It's a legendary harbor. It builds ships real
Okay.
good. Well, I gotta be honest with you.
about-
There's like a bunch of these that I want real bad, and
What about the
I
hotel has the invalidas?
I don't think the older ones are as interesting. Plus 1 combat strength per veterancy level is kind of neat on units, and 100 money per unit destroyed is. It's not nothing, but like a big battle, even a battle twice the size of the one we just saw would only be like 1,000 gold, and we make 1748 per turn at this point. It's not like
Okay, yeah, that's
it's not a
that
super
great.
meaningful amount of money.
How was my pronunciation?
I shudder to think.
It's French. How was my pronunciation?
Indeed. So I think I'm gonna grab as much as I'm like talking about how much we want science, and we do, and there's a bunch of these that do give science. I kind of want to grab the naval harbor first, and I think that we could have
Yeah, that
some
makes sense.
we could have some cities start work on this after we complete our current round of districts. We're pretty close to that first builder star is coming along. Two more districts. All right, let's see what they do.
You know what's a pain in the ass?
What's that?
Naval ships.
Worst kind of ships, really.
I had to do Oh.
Why is she doing this? Why is she doing this? Queen Tamiris has become a level 3 pacifist
We need to take another look at this with cooler heads.
because she's asking us about the war again.
Offer always seems to smell.
She wants war so bad. She wants peace so bad. She's convinced everybody. Foolishly.
Greetings.
Hi.
What shall we discuss?
What's going on with you? How come you're so mad? She's breaking treaties left and right. She is creating war support. Like, if she decides to declare war on us or something, she demands that I declare war with Queen Tamiris. Well,
We did that.
I accept.
Okay.
Fine. We'll do as you ask.
My people wish to give you their thanks.
That's weird. Oh no, war. Yeah, very strange. I am still going to refuse the peace.
You must be out of.
We're gonna have to make a move. War support, like now that she's a level 3 pacifist, now that she's doing all this pleading, all of a sudden it's getting real hard to maintain the vibe at home.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to make a move, and I'm not really in a good position to do that. I think she's got a pretty okay apprehension of the situation here. Unfortunately, we can't just attack her in the water. Like we can shove out onto the sea and attack her in transport ships, but obviously that works out in a way
not a
that's
great
kind of
idea.
silly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it puts our troops at significantly more risk than they would be otherwise. We can buy a handful of ships. Oof, a man of war is 6 population.
Ships are expensive.
Yeah.
So
We are
I-
so
I
many
was-
turns away from the move up to better ships.
So you, when you decided to build the Kaiserlich,
Yeah.
it reminded me of like modern naval ships, and I was gonna tell a little story. So, but I'll wait until we have a moment where
No,
it's
go ahead.
appropriate for. Oh, okay.
I'm just like looking at costs here and trying to figure out if I think it's a good idea to throw that much population onto the water real fast.
So one time I published a game from another designer, a World War I naval game about the Pacific Theater in World War I, which is a lot of German boats and a lot of Japanese boats fighting the Germans. And I said, you know what? For each type of ship there is, I'll do a drawing. I'll do a drawing of the ship, a silhouette, So we get a little bit of a flavor there. That should be real
Now
easy.
that the
It
city
turns
has
out
15 research quarters, it's going
with-
to need
with-
thousands of coffee shops.
yeah, with those kind of ships,
Hmm.
each class of ship, they only build 2 or 3 of them, maybe.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing dozens of ship illustrations. It was such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I
That's-
could see
That's
that.
the whole story.
I could see that. Oh, see, they ran another army up here. Well, I was looking at this army because boy, they got armies. Let me tell you. Well, the good news is we move fast enough to come and join this battle because we are keeping our troops nearby. We're keeping our troops strong. Okay. So it's reading us as weaker overall with all of these units. Is it because black is including a lot of boats? No, it's not. That's
They got
interesting.
those chariots. They got those mad chariots everyone loves.
Yeah, this seems like it would not be beneficial to them, this battle. Yeah, the auto resolve has the auto resolve does have them losing. It shows all of my city units dying. But wow, it thinks this is going to be like a desperate fight for our life kind of situation. This right here, this is exactly the kind of battle where we do it manually.
Yeah.
So they attacked. They didn't just throw in. They actually attacked. So they're getting the first turn. That's a little dangerous. Where are all my... Okay, my units are starting... units are starting kind of a weird scattered formation here. We don't have to let them up onto the hill. Why would we let them up onto the hill? Here's the downside of their plan. I have built all across the top of this cliff for exactly this reason. All of their attacking spaces are the lowest possible ground. This was the intent. This was the plan. And then we have units that will show up during the first turn.
Okay.
They're not going to be able to fit their full army on land at first, which is interesting. It does take them a little while to sort of like play out their moves. So they do have one tile here where they're able to make an attack against equal height opponents, which is a shame because that means we're going to be fighting uphill to clear these arquebusiers. But our units are in fortifications. We have each other backed up. Like, we should be able to hold out even though our combat strength is pretty low relative to them. See a lot of moving around here. And their units that don't, their non-ranged units are going to be trading mostly even or worse.
Yeah.
Okay, my side. So, we have these two reinforcement positions that we want to be very careful how we spend them. So arquebusiers don't move and shoot, right? Yeah.
That makes sense. The arquebus is like a real pain in the ass to reload.
Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at these units over here and trying to figure out, like, we can attack downhill at a slight positive. I think that's reasonable to do. Well, although, random number generator, it did not, in fact, attack downhill at a slight positive. It found a way to deal us more damage. Okay, so we can make those guys look pretty messed up. We unfortunately, so there's a cliff face here, but if you have a district built on each side of the cliff face, your units, friendly units, can move inside the city walls over the cliff freely.
Okay.
Which is it's literally why I built this district.
That's really smart. I think that's a really good decision on your part, but also like a really good game design thing.
So I'm gonna retreat this unit for obvious reasons. I'm trying to like prep the position here. Yeah, I think you can fall back to there. We don't want to just surrender the tile, because we don't want to give them the ability to walk through the
right
through the walls and be inside the walls. So I do want to defend the tile, but I want to obviously put somebody who's healthy in there. And then I think attacking out would be a mistake, probably. Well, we might kill the Markabata for free. But the thing is, if we don't attack with the unit, it will go into defense mode. A unit that hasn't spent its attack at the end of the turn goes into defending mode. And in defending mode, they have extra combat strength. So people who are attacking them will trade worse. And I probably want to leave... I think I want to leave them unattacking for that reason.
Okay.
So let's just move the arquebus out, because it's blocking. Yeah, we have to make a pretty unfavorable uphill move against this other arquebus. Or we can like pepper the units on the water with shot, but that doesn't really do a whole lot for us. We have to kill their arquebus. This is the most critical part of this battle, is killing this thing. So if I fire with this unit, it's going to lock the tile and prevent any more reinforcements from coming in. But that's basically the case. It's already basically the case that we can't bring more units in, because we have obviously a very tight quarters here. Them getting the high ground on one tile is going to be like the single thing that informs how this battle goes. Okay, that could have been a lot worse. And then unfortunately the rest of these units have no way of joining the battle because they hold the bottleneck there. Nope, I'm just selecting units. It doesn't make any sense for us to run out. So I think we should run these guys over to here just to provide, morale bonuses.
Okay.
They won't be able to get into the city without clearing these draftees anyway, and I don't see that happening.
So I guess I'll ask you a question, because
Yeah, and they have more guns coming in over the coast.
So I know that you would have preferred to be able to instant resolve this. And I understand the reasons why. Do you enjoy this system in its own right? Is the tactical crunch enough for you, or
it's a little there should be more to it. It's
Okay.
like it's a little simple, I think.
yeah?
And that's a couple of different things happening, right? First of all, it's I honestly, the thing I wish most was that it was just the Endless Legend combat system,
Okay.
which is better, but it makes people mad because it's a little it requires a little bit more like thought and skill to play. That is not generally how people want these games to go, despite what they say. They want to be able to more or less face roll their way to victory.
They want to feel smart. They don't want to have to be smart.
Yes, I would say that's a very good way to put it. And that's part of the reason you see so much nostalgia for particular kinds of combat systems in the community. People will say like they like Civ 4's combat because the AI is better at it, because The AI can provide more of a challenge, but I think there's a lot of sort of editing going on around that. All right, I think we can afford to have this draftee just finish this guy off. Our regiment was disorganized by foreign agents. This is an effect that's been applied to us?
You know, that's definitely something
Not
that
actually
you also...
sure what that means. Huh. Well, okay, I clicked outside the battle. Here we go. -8 combat strength. Really? Are we seeing -8? No. I guess it must be something that got applied after the battle started, and so it's not actually... I don't know.
Yeah.
Weird.
But that kind of nostalgia, and also that thing where people say they want things to be difficult and require their skill, but actually they hate it when that happens. That's certainly my experience in a lot of Hex Encounter wargaming, where a lot of people, if you give someone a space with a lot of trade-offs, and where like it's difficult to do the thing well,
Yeah.
they just kind of blame the thing instead of themselves. And yeah, it's certainly something I have experience with. I tend to chalk that up to just the age, like the demographics of a lot of people in the Hex Encounter space, because it does tend to skew older. In a more boomerish direction. I don't know if there's like general age demographics for this genre.
Trying to figure out how I want to reposition people here. Let's make sure that we have vision of the backfield as they're starting to do stuff in the backfield. I am starting to think of maybe running some of the draftees out to control, to prevent them from spreading around to get the backside of the city, because they're using their Markabatas out here, and we can definitely take a fucking Markabata with a random militia unit. I think I'm going to try to make this a little bit more awkward for them. All right, so then this relatively healthy unit can run out and deal a lot of damage here. That makes things a little bit more challenging for them on that front. You, I think, are going to... See, it makes it very difficult for me to remove this unit, though. We have such a small number of healthy draftees. I have to say, I thought the auto-resolver was maybe being a little bit kind to them, but I see the challenge. I didn't understand how tight the lock was going to be on this. I see the challenge that this scenario poses for us now.
I believe in you. You can do it.
So this is scalable. So it behooves us to have somebody in position. Oh, these are just prowlers. These aren't real units. I didn't realize that. Well, then we definitely want to... We don't want to sit on defense against those. We want to be aggressive there. Let's have you step up like this. You probably have to... Yeah, we're gonna see Cahokia Raiders get through the wall here, which is a shame. But I think if I make this sacrifice, this is a slightly negative attack for us. But if we do a decent amount of damage here, then we can probably set it up such that we can kill this unit on our next turn and be able to take the high ground space ourselves, and then from there start turning things around. And I've started moving some of us into the water because we can maybe get behind them on the beach, and like otherwise we just have so many of us sitting in the reinforcement space. This does pose some risk. Obviously, their ranged units would be good at picking us off in the water, but the units are just going to die on the reinforcement space otherwise anyway, so this at least gives us some capability to put forth some pressure here. But you can see a lot of their strength is now focused in this like sort of sweep, and they're not really able to push the wall of the city anymore. They're having to pull units back to try to reinforce over here. Okay, interesting. So they took the run over for the high ground, like a good strong attack, rather than having that unit move into the city.
Oh, they have your flag.
Yeah. It's not ideal. Okay. So, first thing we definitely need to do is get a unit adjacent to the flag. Alright, I'm going to need the damage dice to play along a little bit here. There's a way that this could go real sideways. Yeah, that's it. We could roll 7 on a 5 to 25 a couple of times and lose the battle in that way. 12. Are you fucking kidding me? Okay, so we are going to be considered the losers of this battle now because the damage dice rolled below expected value twice in a row. That's gonna be it's gonna be a problem.
Blueprints.
Blueprints. I mean, randomized combat resolution systems, you know, they're just, who doesn't love a die roll? So yeah, the thing is, if we kill that unit, then we have a full strength Teutonic Knight charge up the hill into this attack on even ground against a weakened Cahokia Raider who either dies from that attack or almost dies from that attack, and then we have the rear charge then enabled. Like this guy is dead unless we get extremely unlucky. So we got extremely unlucky, except this is where you start to get some of the like frustration enabled warping of the perception of game function, because the person who quote unquote rolled the dice happens to be the person who benefits from us rolling low. And so it's very in a real life war game where the dice are an object, it's very different than if your opponent just told you, oh, you got a 12. That's too bad for you. So this is definitely some of the way you hear people talk about these games comes from moments like that, where it's like, wow, I sure wish I got to decide what the battle outcome was. So unfortunately, there's actually nothing we can do about this.
Yeah.
We can attack down the hill, and we should. We can do some more damage over here, but that's gonna be the battle because we don't have control of the flag at the break between two turns. I'm not actually sure what will happen because it's an attack on a city. If the city will be temporarily flipped to them, it certainly shouldn't be because they didn't eliminate the defenders or anything. But it may. I'm not super clean on the mechanics here. Yeah, okay. So that's ridiculous. We'll take it back. It's fine. Part of the reason that I was not spending our large supply of money was because I thought there was a chance that we were going to need to hurriedly buy an army. And I think here we are, needing to hurriedly buy an army. So, being undermined by spies, are we? -8's a lot of combat strength. All right. Let's see what units cost.
You know, I will say people do complain about the die rolls even in a physical war game.
Yeah, it's a sort of a different character though, right? Like,
Yeah, because it's not an accusation of
yeah.
cheating. You know, something that I actually did in a few of my more recent war games is I introduced that are dice based. Is I introduced a reroll token.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm not the first one. Other people have done this.
Yeah.
That passes back and forth as it's used, and I think. How would you feel in this kind of game with like a gamier element like that, with like a reroll that you could use and then your opponent has it until they use it in a battle system? Because a lot of this does feel very board gamey.
Yeah,
In a lot of ways.
I think I understand the idea of it passes back and forth, but I think that does a uniquely kind of bad job of addressing the problem. Like if one player's so like if you're viewing it as a way of like smoothing out bad rolls, let's say one player is for the entirety of the game is rolling around expected value and one player is rolling 20% below expected value. That player needs to use the token more often.
Yeah.
And their other opponent needs to use it less. So they're still going to be suffering from bad luck when their opponent has the token. You know, like,
Yeah.
I get the like sort of the. No, I guess I don't. I don't get why you would make it a thing that passes back and forth. That seems like a really good way to intentionally prevent your solution from solving the problem at all. Like if you're gonna do something like that, it has to be way more based on, like tokens that are accumulated by players as they roll worse than expected or something like that.
Well, the way I've used it.
Each player having equal access to it, yeah, it doesn't do anything at all actually.
Well,
So I think we're gonna make
way,
a bunch of Sapa Inca guards here. I'm looking at like the costs and the population cost as well of these units and trying to figure out like what makes the most sense. We are going to be fighting from the high ground if we're coming from this side, and the Sapa Inca guards do have higher combat strength than an arquebusier baseline, plus extra bonus combat strength when fighting from the high ground or fighting from within fortification. And we'll probably bring at least a couple of knights because the knights are cheaper on our population. But it's worth noting the Sapa Inca guard actually it's not a very expensive unit, industry-wise.
Okay.
So as far as our money goes, this is a better option, but it is kind of devastating to the city's population to have to quickly produce an army like this. I think we'll go like 5 and 2. All right, so they don't have any movement this turn, but they'll be able to run in. We'll push this back pretty easily, I think. Unfortunately, because they are the AI, they have a number of free units that is frankly eye-watering.
We need to take another look at this with cooler heads.
What does white peace
Whatever
mean?
you offer always seems to smell.
I would get my city back, right?
Do we know that?
We don't know that. But when you do a surrender deal, you know, it city changing hands of cities has to be negotiated with war score. Like it's a big deal. It's hard to imagine white peace allowing you to just keep a city. Given that, right?
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. Because if I could white peace, get Byblos back, and then just spend a few turns, you know, reconstructing and researching. She has devoted a lot of her military to this side of the table all of a sudden. Oh, tell me those Carracks are going to eat that fleet of transport ships. Please tell me you're good enough at the game.
Any day we speak is a good day.
Okay, yeah, you are still at war with Black. That's free lunch. That's so beautiful. Because I don't actually know how the mechanic works, this is not the thing I would usually do. I'm gonna save the game and take the piece.
Okay.
We must learn.
I like you. I agree. We have to.
Okay,
do
yep,
this
stop.
again.
Hey, let me cancel out of the thing. Okay, there we go. Right click backs you out of a menu unless the game is trying to throw notifications at you, in which case it dismisses them one at a time. All right. I do still think this was worth doing, buffing up our army in a real hurry, and we're definitely going to bring this to the fore. But yeah, that does push her back out of the city. So, that puts us both at 0 war support. I immediately have demands available because they're in my territory, Amabel.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to hit the demand button again. We're going to start building war support
Okay.
again.
My fist wants to strike you, but my wallet listens.
Yeah, listen, you can just give me 7,000
You are a
gold.
fool I for imagining you a friend.
When did you do that? That would have been very foolish indeed. So yeah, we're building war support. We're gonna get back in there, but I think this is probably an okay way to sort of just like break their momentum for the moment. And this effect, like if our armies had actually been fighting 8 combat strength low, that would have made that battle extremely difficult. So that spy effect is something that we do care about. Okay, young offenders. The population of Cusco has snowballed of late, more so than its current housing can cope with. Many souls are huddled together in filthy, overcrowded accommodation. Poverty, unemployment, illness, and crime is rife. Worse still is the number of children who, lacking opportunities or support, turn to violence. Look at these these fucking ragamuffins. Recently, many of them have formed into roving gangs of pickpockets and thugs, often at the behest of criminal adults. Their aggression and thievery means people are increasingly afraid to leave their homes. How should we tackle this problem? Well, we could just flood the street with police and guards and kick the shit out of a bunch of children. Plus 25 stability for a certain definition of stability. It does harm industry in the area for 10 turns. We must think long term and invest accordingly. Only better education can save these children from a life of crime. So, I mean, that's not a small amount of money, but it's an amount of money we certainly can afford to pay. And that's, a fair amount of extra science on Cusco for a while. Or this is a social crisis. We must provide food, clean water, and medicine to those stranded in poverty. The military can assist with distribution. I mean, it sounds like housing is the real problem. But this stuff obviously also is a big deal. So we would increase our unit costs to represent, that members of the military are off helping with this stuff. And for some reason, this causes us to produce money. This is one of those things where like you're gonna run into a problem with like, who are you the player representative of? So what does money mean? Because the state spends money in the short term on something like this, and it ends up being tremendously valuable in the long term, right? The citizenry, the sort of like the people of the country prosper, and it will be plus money to them in the short term. But it's kind of like, this is kind of wibbly like nonsense here. In any case, I think educate's what we want.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But that was the understanding the representation on that one's a little tricky.
Those young ragamuffins reminded me of something when I was on my research trip. When I was doing my, what you call important field work.
Your important field work, yes.
And I was reading through these newspaper archives, and there was a story about a 14-year-old that was passing bad checks.
Sure, like Frank Abagnale.
And I just thought that was really charming. I mean, it's not great to do that, but like, I'm sorry. If I'm working like retail, I'm not accepting a check from a 14-year-old. You know.
Well, that's not usually how that works, right?
I mean,
They'll be doing. They won't be. It won't be the 14-year-old standing there handing you a check most of the
I
time.
mean I mean
right?
that's what it was. That's what
Okay.
it was.
Because
In
there
1955.
are ways to do that. Yeah, I mean, again, Frank Abagnale.
Yeah, I know. I suppose you're right. I don't know. I just.
I'm not actually sure where I want to put this. For maximum effect, and by maximum effect, I mean the ability to threaten Brown. Um, I'm thinking of putting it a little further north than I otherwise might, in a
Yeah.
position where it's like more able to threaten Thebes. It's not bad here.
Yeah, I guess I was just saying that when I think about like juvenile delinquents, I think of like Angels with Dirty Faces, Bowery Boys, and not like check fraud.
Yeah. You know, I'm gonna
Is that
build
where
it
you want it?
here because right now this region's harbor is on the north side because that's where the resources are. But this will give us the ability to drop
Okay.
boats into the North Sea. Okay. And that would take quite a while to build if that city were the only city working on it. But we can commit a few cities and get it done somewhat faster. Sidon's got 2 turns until it's done with its floating market, then it can chip in. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, so that turned out to be a little rough. This is a
Yeah.
dangerous area. I think the biggest thing I need to do is make sure that we get a district built on this tile
Okay.
so that we control the bottleneck entirely. The fact that they were able to slide through was the real addressable issue. And actually, to that end, probably I shouldn't be building that with this city. I should be building something there. What is this? Oh, this is the main plaza of the city, right? So we could really build anything adjacent. Honestly, a garrison's not a horrible idea, though. Just like because that's what we're doing either way. Really, is we're militarizing the tile, right?
Yeah.
Having it actually be a fort, I think, is not a bad idea. Okay, and then we're gonna have to rebuild these armies a little bit. It would have been probably better. Well, I don't know. In the long run, having taken that auto resolve, losing what it was about half of the army, right? It would have been about one of the army's worth of units in total dead. To blow up their whole situation, obviously would have been a better outcome for us. I thought in that situation I could tilt it further. And that is partly because I had not actually examined the battlefield in detail beforehand, so that's on me. But we got this situation now. To be clear, I don't know that they would have offered white peace after the battle, but they offered white peace at the beginning of the turn. And then the battle happened, and then I took the offer. So that is a little bit of an abuse of game mechanics, I suppose. Okay, so yeah, slowly gaining war support. We're gaining 5 per turn, and that should be steady. As long as we have more ongoing demands than they do, we'll gain 5 per turn every turn. You cannot declare a normal war until you have quite a lot of war support. And this is the one, but you can, of course, surprise war. If we do that, they'll immediately gain 25 war support. Everyone who's not allied with me will get 50 leverage against me because, because I'm acting crazy out here. And we will gain the traitor badge, which obviously has some, like, I believe being at war against a person with the trader badge actually increases your war support rather than decreasing it, so it'd be easy for her to
Okay.
maintain her war support. But the trader badge does gain you some war support when you destroy an enemy district. So it turns the war into a sort of a different kind of affair entirely. So we're about to tap out for the episode here. Gosh,
Right.
I really hope they figure this out. They're both in this position where they have like a bunch of transport ships and a bunch of like real combat vessels. I'm curious to see what happens over here. But before we go, do you have anything to say about the stuff and the mechanics and whatnot that you have witnessed here today?
I mean, it's of a piece with the stuff we've seen before, but it was interesting to learn more about how they do that calculation and about the difference between, you know, an ongoing turn-by-turn battle and the instant resolution.
Yeah, I have definitely had
and-
some
and-
games where, like, I had the allowing a battle to go 3 turns just would have been economically untenable. And so and so you're like, well, I gotta, whatever the instant resolve is here, we kind of have to live with it.
And I liked getting more of a sense of how the surrender system works, how the white, I mean, all that. I like learning that stuff. So it was thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So we are 6 stars now. Managed to pick up the 2nd builder star and the 1st militarist star there. We are 12 units or 20 districts away from star number 7 or 7 technologies or, you know, a whole lot of everything else. Like a whole lot of everything else. We would have to gain 70 population. So I'm sorry, that's 80. That's 81 population to gain the 1st agrarian star here. The scaling on these gets pretty wild. I guess like 110 leverage is not totally undoable. But anyway, that's what we're looking at. The next era is the final era.
Okay.
So we don't necessarily need to be in a big hurry to get there, but we are getting close to the ability. All right, and with that, I'm going to say that's going to be it for us for today. We did not make a lot of turns happen there, but a lot of important things did happen.
Yeah.
When you come back next time, faster. We're going to be moving faster because we're not at war. Faster into the future, and we're going to see if we can maintain this hold, if we can keep Black contained to one continent, and so much more. And we'll see you then.